Well, guys, where to begin? It's been a killer week working on the car. Got a lot done. As I said, I wasn't going to document putting the motor together because it would just be pointless. There's a million guys out there, reputable guys, who are assembling mod motors and can tell you the ins and the outs and their own little tips and tricks to get the best performance and efficiency out of their motors. I started out with a short block 03 Cobra rotating assembly with a Texas block, and I had a set of heads cleaned up, some valve guides, valve seats, new valves, springs. I also went with a later set of heads. They actually had a 2005 casting number, what they call it. It's the DC heads. I believe they're DC. This is probably the last casting you can get. 9 thread, spark plug threads, as these have a history of blowing off the spark plug threads on the earlier castings. So I put that all together and got it in the car. Went with new timing components and lash adjusters, a new oil pump with billet gears from MMR. And the motor went together great. There was really no issues. I just really, it took my time assembling everything because I've been in the LS world for the last 12, 13 years, so I haven't put a mod motor together in quite some time. It's a big separation from a 302, but I was able to get it together and everything seems pretty good. But I'll walk you through some of the things we got in the car now. It's really coming together. It's Saturday, it's like 7 a.m. here at the shop, and I'm just putting in overtime trying to get everything done. And there she sits. I think the last time we had spoke, you guys knew I had got the front end in the car and got this suspension all rolling. And I actually put this motor in from the top. I've done that before. A lot of guys will just drop the suspension and put it up from the bottom, but I wanted to do it from the top just because there's some things I wanted to mock up and check out at the same time. I mean, it is snug getting towards the firewall area, but we do have room. This hose I have to make, it's not binded up, so pretty good. I actually went with the head cooling mod from MMR there. So got all of that in. I didn't really run into any problems just besides finding random nuts and bolts because I kind of had parts laying everywhere. I didn't have a complete motor assembly. Also on the Texas block too, for the 03 Cobra lower manifold to fit, you have to grind down these knock sensor bosses. So I took care of that before the motor went in. Well, we do clear the Hydro Boost. We do clear the clutch cable. It's snug, but it is clear with a little modification. Throttle cable is going to be a little tight, but I found a position where I can bolt it in and it's going to sit comfortably. So I'm kind of just mocking up some wiring right now, and I have the power steering lines hooked up the way they want to be, but I'll talk to you about the rest of it underneath. So I'll start from the back end of the car and just give you a rundown once again. We did the 8.8 rear end out of a New Edge Mustang 98 GT. I put 373s in it, cleaned up all the disc brake components and re-ran brake cables. Went with the UPR double adjustable uppers just to get the pinion angle right. I'm not trying to launch the car down the track. The sweet Red Horse fuel filter is fed by a Holley 525 in-tank pump setup. As you can see, our fuel lines are tucked in a way the best they can be. Everything is trying to, make it neat as I can. I don't have the most finesse when it comes to this stuff. I can put them together, but I can't make them look pretty like some guys. Then we have the 6-speed installed. So a T56 out of an 03 Cobra with some work done to it. The input shaft has been upgraded along with the throw-up bearing retainer. I went with the McLeod RXT twin disc. We use those in all of the GM stuff, and I really like the pedal feel. And it's a really, it's a real comfortable Mustang clutch pedal, which sounds like an anomaly, but it is super, super comfortable. Pedals light. You can see the clutch right in there. Great stuff from McLeod. Like I said, we use those exclusively on the LS stuff, and it always works. There's that Maximum Motorsport steering shaft I was talking about. It actually adapts the SN95 rack to the Fox steering column. And that worked out great. fit just like they said and fully functional 100%. I got nothing bad to say about that. Everything worked out great. It's a good set of motor mounts. Yes, I know the nuts aren't tight because I got to do the header still. And just going along, oil cooler, accessories, getting a belt on it, getting everything sorted, trying to get everything done and right before the headers and the blower go on, because once those two things are on, it's really tough to kind of get your hands in and get around. So crossing my T's and dotting my I's and just making sure I got everything covered. It's just some old school FoxBody T5 trans wiring. You can see I have the neutral safety switch wires jumpered right now. That's really all they did in the FoxBody pigtail that came off of the T5 usually. So I think I'm just gonna nip this end off and jumper these two together and then run the reverse light wiring for the T56 here. And then as far as trans wiring, all I really need to do is tap into the speed sensor, tap that into the Dakota digital gauges, and wire in the reverse lockout, which should be pretty straightforward. It's just an open and closed solenoid, so I'll ground one wire, and the other wire I'll run in the car, probably hook it up to the brake switch. One other thing to mention too, I did find myself making some 1/4-inch K-member spacers for the K-member, just to drop it down that little bit because the clutch cable was kind of stuffed up in there. So I made some spacers out of some 1/4-inch aluminum. You have them there and there. And now it sits nice and comfortable, and everything is still accessible, which is great too. There'll be no issues. And yeah, I could have painted everything and polished it up, but yeah, it's just, I'm happy the way it is so far. It's a great stiffless cross member too, tons of room. And this is actually an 03 Cobra drive shaft. For any of you guys doing this, I found the proper mount to fit. It's a 41104, I believe, energy suspension. It's for an SVO Mustang, 4-cylinder turbo, and that worked out perfect. 03 Cobra drive shaft, proper length. Everything's working so far. I still got a set pinion angle and stuff like that, but it's getting together. Floors look nice too. You know, also too, I still have a bunch of room. I got a nice MGW shifter up there, but nothing is cluttered, hitting, or banging. The drive line seems to be centered quite well. So these are all things I'll go over once I'm done, but it really went so fast. I think as soon as I dipped the motor in, I had the tranny in within an hour, so sometimes you just can't stop. So it's been about a week since I filmed that little bit. The thing with this project is I'm mostly doing it by myself after work. So, you know, I come in early to get done early to get going on the car project. And it's really hard to stop and film every little sequence. And sometimes when you're on a roll, you just have to keep going while the motivation and the parts are flowing and everything seems to be working. So, you know, it looks like a lot was done, but essentially, you know, the motor was just tucked in with the tranny. You know, some accessories were put on, mostly to gauge where I may come into some issues regarding the headers hitting certain spots, or hoses and belts and running a wiring harness, things like that. So not too much was done, you know, that had to be covered. The headers did go up into the car. They were a little snug because I went with the 1 7/8 from American Racing, and you got to make a little massage in the floor on the passenger side where like the foot would be. You got to kind of clearance that a little bit. And the steering shaft that I got from Maximum Motorsports, although it's supposed to be space saving and works great with the headers, this one needed some modification, but got all of that pretty much working. Let me just touch on that. So the headers, I ordered 1 3/4, but it turns out they sent me 1 7/8. And you may not think that's a lot, but when you're fitting it into a car that it doesn't belong in already to start, and it's a lot. It was a lot of modification, and I had to just had to kind of cave it in, but I made it look nice with the socket, so it kept its smooth contour. And you know, the steering shaft needed to be modified. I had to grind some points where it was going to touch, and it was just a nightmare. But they're in now. But what a nightmare. But so we'll check out the car. We'll check out under the hood. I'm laying out the coolant bottles now, and yeah, see what you got. So a lot of the wiring, first off, inside the car has been started for the Dakota Digital setup. What was really great about this is Dakota Digital offers a BIM module that actually communicates with the Holley HP tuning software. So most of my connections are just through this CAN bus plug here, and the Dakota Digital box will only really need to see some lights and the vehicle speed sensor, which makes things quite easy as far as pinning everything out. So that's what the gauges look like. They're gonna look great in there. So some of that stuff was started inside the car. Nothing really besides proper shift boot and insulator installed with an MGW shifter. And as you can see, we have the Holley kind of laid in. We'll take it under the hood and I'll show you what's up. As I said, it looks like a lot has been done, but it's mostly just stuff to check for mock-up. I did install the battery tray and the power and ground distribution that was laid in there. So the motor is in, the lower intake manifold is just sitting in there as far as just checking to see how the room is forward and back. These tanks are just loose, they're not tight, they're just kind of resting in there just for mock-up. We did run the Holley HP wiring right through the FoxBody grommet there. That worked out well. You can see my 2 fuel lines there, tap into the fuel pressure regulator. So, you know, the motor is in, like I said, and you can see the headers. They're quite snug. I mean, American Racing makes great stuff. I build LS cars all day, and we use them religiously on the LS builds, and they're phenomenal. But they are in there, and they are snug. With the new 240 amp alternator, some products from Canton, and some billet pulleys. So a lot of it is just waiting on wiring now. The headers are on. I'm going to build the exhaust this week, and I'll try to take you guys along the best I can. But that's how the motor sits right now. A lot of this stuff is just resting in here for mock-up. Like I said, nothing really crazy, but that's how it's going to look with a giant Whipple on top. Definitely going to have to cut the hood, put a hood scoop on, but I think we're going to be okay. You can see how snug. None of this is caught either. I don't want to make it look like I hacked it up, but this is pretty snug there. But we are in. Coolant hoses are run. I'm just hoping the blower plays nice and clears the back there. It's gonna be tall. I'm super excited. I hung the tailpipes on for mock-up. You can see they're just hanging down there. But I went with the 3-inch pipes. I'm gonna go full 3-inch on the car. A few of my friends have used them, and they really like the clearance they give. So, like I said, hopefully this week I'm gonna be building the exhaust, and it's coming together. This poor car. It's getting there slowly but surely. So at times it really feels like it's never gonna end, but I'm down to wiring up the entire car. Well, basically wiring up the Holley and the components. The intercooler pump needs to be tripped by the Holley, and the fans need to be tripped by the Holley, and also the fuel pump. So it's a fuel pump relay, intercooler relay, fan relay, and complete the wiring connections on the Holley. And that should take care of the wiring. That'll have all the wiring sorted for the car, because I'm still using the FoxBody body harness, headlight and taillight harness. So all of those components, if wired up properly to, you know, the positive on the starter solenoid through that fusible link, they'll still be working. So the car will still have power inside. As far as our gauges, like I said, that BIM module from Dakota Digital will communicate with the Holley via CAN bus. So it kind of saves a lot of the tapping and splicing in to get communications onto the gauges. Later on in this week, I'm gonna attack the exhaust. Now that the headers are down and in and where they're gonna sit, I'm gonna build the X-pipe, install the flow tubes. I went with some MagnaFlow 3-inch in and out mufflers and those sweet Flowmaster tailpipes, and that'll take care of the exhaust. And the great thing about the Holly too is it's just 102 it runs on, so I'll send that down and mount that, and I'll probably put a wideband on the other side, so technically I can compare each side of the engine to make sure I don't have any issues. And once the exhaust is done, I can lay the blower on, and that's when the nail biting starts, because if anybody knows anything about those Whipples, they're tough to get at all the bolts at times, and fitting it into this car that it's not meant for is going to be a trip. But with some patience and some tools, hopefully I get it. But after that, we're going to fill the fluids, bleed the brakes, put the startup tune in it, and see what we get. I'll do the startup tune probably on a video with you guys and see the first start, because of course we always want to see the first start video. I'm just hoping I don't look like a fool in the end. But we're getting there, guys. Sorry, it seems kind of rushed and it seems like I skipped over a lot of stuff, but most of it is pretty basic. Dipping a motor in with a cherry picker and putting a clutch on. It doesn't really need to be covered. I think we've all done that. There was no issues as far as snags or stuff that didn't work. Going with a modular trans, a modular engine, and a modular clutch setup, you don't really have any issues there. But yeah, I'm seriously looking forward to this project. I gave myself a deadline of April Fool's Day, April 1st. So if it can fire up in that time, I'll be super happy. So stay tuned to the channel. Give it a like, share, subscribe, whatever it is. If you guys are into the FoxBody stuff like I am, I got more projects coming. I'm trying to build up to the next one. We did get the valve body in for the Ford Lightning, and there may be another little sweet car we're going to be throwing together real soon. But yeah, I'm going right along, and this channel has really given me some patience and appreciation for these cars again. It seems like so long ago I was into them, and now I'm back and I'm having a lot of fun. But I thank you guys for checking out the video, and we'll talk soon. Stay tuned. Peace.